Am I the a-hole for not giving my half-siblings any of the inheritance I got from my dad, but paying for my stepsister's surgery and house deposit? I, 32 female, have 2 half-siblings, 15 male and 16 male, and a stepsister, 28 female. My parents divorced when I was 8 as mom was caught cheating with my now stepdad. Dad got majority custody of me because mom didn't actually want any custody and want to go travel with now stepdad. Stepdad walked out on my stepsister, at the time 4-year-old, and her mom who was in the middle of treatment for cervical cancer. About 2 years after the whole time went down, my stepsister's mom died and my stepdad was given custody of her. He had none previously. As they then had to settle down, my mom fought for custody of me as she didn't want to have to pay child support if she was stuck, unable to travel because of stepdad getting stepsister. They got 50-50 custody of me. I wound up very close to my stepsister and ended up living together for a brief while after she was kicked out at 16 and left home at 17. I've never been close to my younger half-brothers, largely because mom and stepdad spoiled them constantly and made no secret of the fact that I and stepsister were intruding on their perfect family. Long story short, we've been low contact with them pretty much for the last 12 years. Stepsister reached out to them last year when she was diagnosed with cervical cancer and asked for their help to fund a hysterectomy. They told her that she deserved her diagnosis for forcing them to stop traveling, and stepdad told her that she was going to die alone and miserable like her mom. She's been no contact with them ever since. My dad died about 6 months ago and left everything to me plus a car to my stepsister. I've always been very close to him, and my stepsister also grew close to him after mom/stepdad kicked her out. It's not a ton, but I was able to give her money for a house deposit and pay off her surgery, as well as pay off my student loans, and enough to make a nice emergency fund. My stepdad recently found out about this. We don't know how. Neither of us told him. And we've received several threatening emails and letters saying we should have shared with our half-brothers, and threatening to sue us since dad left something to stepsister despite them not being related. Then clearly, he would have wanted our half-brothers to have something as well. I basically told them to get stuffed and stop harassing us, but I've just found out that my half-brothers have no money saved for their study, and I'm wondering if I'm the a-hole for helping out stepsister but not them. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Nope, nope, and nope. Firstly, sorry for your loss. Secondly, the money was willed to you legally by your biological father. It is yours to do with as you see fit. Helping your stepsister is wonderful as you are close to her. Paying off loans is very sensible, and an emergency fund is vital. I would advise you also start paying into some retirement funds. Good luck. Totally agree. The only one who looked like they deserved the money was the stepsister. The others don't deserve a single cent from that inheritance, and they can't do anything about it, which is great for Opie. Not the a-hole. If your dad wanted to leave your stepbrother something, he would have. Your stepdad is like a shark circling the waters for leftovers. Lawyer up, Opie, even if just in the sense you know legally can't do anything. Not the a-hole. If your half-brothers don't have any money for their studies, it's not your fault. It was very nice of you to pay for your stepsister, and your stepdad is being the a-hole for threatening you for money is not rightfully owed. This, feeling guilty that they have no money when it's not Opie's fault, but they have siblings' parents who messed up. Not the a-hole. The estate was your father's to leave to whom he wanted to. No person is entitled to anyone's estate, and I'm saying this as someone who was written out of his father's will. Also, this money is yours to do with as you want. You used it to help someone you love during a time of crisis and to help her out. You are not required to use this money to help anyone out, but are welcome to help anyone your heart tells you to. Do not feel obligated to assist your half-siblings just because your mother and stepfather did not plan properly for them. That said, you might want to talk to a lawyer to head off any legal stunts they might try. One thing to keep in mind, family is about who loves you and stands by you, not about who is related to you. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not sharing my inheritance with my siblings since they were legally adopted? I'm 23 male. I'm in a tricky situation where I'm leaning a bit more in one way than the other and either need that extra pushover or push back to the other side. Unfortunately, my 2 siblings, 21 female and 19 male, and I are the products of an ongoing affair between my mom, 44 female, and her current husband, 43 male. Technically, he is my bio dad. We did a DNA test. But legally, I'm a father's kid, and for the purposes of this story, I will be referring to my legal father as dad, while my bio dad will be referred to as stepdad. My dad died when I was 12, and I was devastated. I love that man so much that I cite his death as the catalyst for my current lack of faith. When I was 13, my mom married my stepdad, and when I was 14, they both approached me and my siblings about legal adoption. My siblings were eager to a new father, while I was crushed at the idea of everyone seemingly so eager to replace the man I knew and loved. While my mom initially respected my wishes to not be legally his, they both kept trying to convince me, but I refused. For years, I respected this man as my mom's husband, the man who provided for me, but he would never be my dad. I could tell that my stepdad was really hurt by this, especially around Father's Day. I would go out and visit my dad's grave with my half-brother, dad's first child with another woman, instead of spending the day with him. I guess he got fed up one day, and that's why he decided to tell my siblings and I all the truth. Obviously, this was a huge blow, and I refused to believe it, hence the DNA test, and I was crushed. It felt like I was losing my dad all over again. My mom decided that it was for the best, and that I no longer had an excuse to not accept the adoption. She was wrong, and I moved out a week after my high school graduation and went low contact with them. The only ones who seemed to be on my side was my half-brother and legal paternal grandparents. They accepted that my siblings were lost to them, but in their eyes, I was still my dad's kid. My younger siblings gave me crap about it for years, and saying that it was weird to spend time with people I had no blood relation to, and that I was being cruel to our biological paternal side. Our relationship became low contact as well, and I didn't really hear from them again until after my great-aunt died. She didn't have any children and married very well, and since her brother, my grandfather, was the only one to have children, so left most of her money to his daughter, my legal aunt, and to me and my half-brother. Since legally, my younger siblings were adopted by our bio dad and they shared no blood relation to her, she didn't consider them family and left them with nothing. My younger siblings heard about money and think I should split with them equally. I feel like since they choose to be adopted and were so willing to rug sweep what our mom did, that they're not entitled to a dime. Am I wrong? Not they-ho. Your siblings. It's weird to spend time with people you have no blood relation to. Also, your siblings. Give us money you got from people we have no blood relation to. At the risk of breaking AITA civility rule, your siblings can go vigorously fornicate with themselves. Not they-ho. That is an absolutely preposterous stance for your siblings to have. They think they should be entitled to inheritance from a side of your family that they not only denounced, but also ridiculed you for keeping in contact with? Yeah, no. This one isn't a hard ruling. Just probably difficult if you're the one living it. Not the a-hole, but your mom is definitely the a-hole for putting you in this crazy situation. Your aunt chose to give you an inheritance. You have nothing to apologize for or feel bad about. I'm so sorry for your loss. Not the a-hole. No one is entitled to receive any inheritance from anyone, especially if the deceased person made it clear what they wanted to give and to whom. Your siblings are acting like spoiled a-holes. Curious fact, the first part is wrong in a lot of countries. But yes, the siblings have no claim after what they said to Opie about his dad. Next story is titled, Would I be the a-hole if I told my dad it's his fault his wife wants a divorce? So my 20 female dad, 40 male, and his wife, Jane, 31 female, have been married for 6 years now. Their relationship started because my dad was cheating on his wife at the time. My dad is a notorious cheater and manipulator, and I have witnessed this firsthand, so I know there are bases to the stories I have heard. Anyway, at first I didn't like Jane because of everything that happened with how their relationship began, and then they got married without telling anyone, which only made it worse. Eventually, I forgave my dad and Jane, and I actually got really close to Jane because she is awesome. I thought my dad had changed because they seemed so perfect for each other. Apparently, that's not the case. Fast forward to now, Jane asked my dad for a divorce. Apparently, he has been up to his cheating habits for a long time and has also been incredibly manipulative to Jane, so I don't blame her. At first, my dad told me he wanted Jane and I to keep our relationship. It hadn't even crossed my mind that I would stop talking to her. But now my dad has really started showing his ass to everyone. For example, at my sister's birthday party, my dad swore the divorce wouldn't be talked about, but then that's all he talked about. The entire time. He made everything so awkward, making sly comments about him, referring to some new guy Jane was talking to, and trying to still act like a couple even though everyone was clearly uncomfortable, following Jane everywhere, going through her phone, etc. He has also snapped at me and made comments about my weight, and has also tried several times to corner me into conversations about it like I am his therapist. We have never really been close, so I'm never really sure what to say, and I don't mind talking to him about it. But he goes into way too much detail and tells me things that he should really only be talking to a licensed professional about. Jane has also told me that he's being emotionally and financially abusive. They still share the same house, unfortunately, until May 1. And has been using their daughter together as leverage. This is all really frustrating because the truth is, it is his fault that all this is happening because he has cheated multiple times. But I also feel bad because I know he is hurting. Would I be the a-hole if I told him that it is his fault this is happening? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole, but it's unlikely to make any impact. He sounds like a narcissist, and he'll just use any negative thing you say as a reason to turn on you. Your best course of action is to remain a friend to Jane and aid her in any way that you can. His behavior towards her and you are reasons enough to cut him off. Largely agree, but I'm not so sure the best course of action is to remain friends with Jane. Seems like both of them are involving OP way too much in marital problems. OP should not be Jane's sounding board about how crappy her dad is, nor should she be Dad's pseudotherapist. The abuse allegations muddy things, but both these parents seem to be looking for way too much emotional support from the adult, but still young child. Not Dayhall. Your plan may backfire with him getting angry at you. Just be prepared for an extreme reaction. Chances are good he knows why she's divorcing him. He may or may not own up to it, but that's not your problem. Personally, I probably wouldn't waste my breath. It probably wouldn't change his behavior. Your dad is a giant ass. A lot of cheaters never stop. Jane was naive to believe she'd be the exception. If they'll cheat with you, they'll cheat on you. But you seem to like Jane, and she sounds way better than your dad is in this situation. If everything you said in the post is true, his actions are indeed the cause of what's happening to him. Not the a-hole. Edit. Thank you guys for all your input. I think it is best to wait until Jane and the baby are out at the very least before I confront his behavior. Both Jane and I are very concerned about what he might do if anything pushes the wrong button because he is very unstable right now. I'm not really concerned about my relationship with him. Like I said, we've never been close and I've lived with my mom my whole life. Our relationship has always been unstable. So if he feels the need to stop talking to me when I do tell him, then that's how it is. Thank you guys. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not taking the kids with me on the honeymoon when their mom insisted? To start, my ex-wife and I divorced 6 years ago. She moved on and got married so fast I couldn't believe it, since we were high school sweethearts. We were sharing custody of our 2 kids, 7 and 9 at the time. She got busy with her new husband, new house, and I did most of my children's care for 2.5 years. Then she got pregnant and counted on me to take care of the kids. I had no problem. In fact, this was a blessing. I got to spend more time with the kids. I got married to my now wife a month ago. My ex asked if I was going to take the kids with me on the honeymoon. I said no and asked if she could have them for a week. She refused. She said she had work, although she always caused a scene to have them for a week. Her husband said he isn't willing to watch them. Those are his stepchildren, but I see why the kids and him aren't close. My ex threw a fit when I said my in-laws were willing to have the kids. She called me crazy to abandon the kids with strangers they've only known for 3 years. She started demanding I take them with me. I argued with her, calling her unreasonable, but she called me a horrible, horrible father. She began bad-mouthing me to my kids, asking them if they're comfortable living with their dad's new wife. Even told them we were leaving for good. I was freaking livid. My wife and I assured them none of this is true, and explained how every newly married couple get this special time together. I didn't just leave. I gave them tasks to decide what they want their new rooms to look like after renovations. I went over to my ex's place and the argument started. She kept saying I should put my new wife before my children and abandon them like that. She took notes to talk to her lawyer about my behavior. She called my wife a witch, and that she didn't trust her with the kids. I blew up at her, telling her to have some respect. Her husband started mocking me, wishing me terrible time, and for the plane to never land. Then told me to be careful not to come home with a baby already, since I had no problem ditching my kids so easily. I told them to bug off, then I left. My mother-in-law came and picked the kids. She was excited to do things with them. This is a chance for them to bond. When we came back, my ex and her sister never stopped berating me for not taking the kids, saying the kids are in for a miserable life with my new wife. I told them to stop it, but they keep guilting me, saying I acted like a neglectful father, putting my kids last on the list. Now for the top comments. Not day-haul and you need a lawyer. Document how she lied to your kids about abandoning them. Document everything. Communicate only through text, so there is a record. She will roll right over you in court unless you can back this up. Your ex is rich to say you're abandoning your kids for a vacation when she abandoned them when she got a new husband, again when she had a new child, and refused to watch them when you were going on your honeymoon. Hopefully you have some evidence if she does try to get some more custody, but it doesn't sound like her husband would want that. Not day-haul. The amount of projection from the ex and the stepdad are like a freaking auto cinema. Not day-haul. Your ex is bat-ass crazy. And you also need to take notes on how you ask her to watch the kids, but she refused, and how the husband said they aren't his kids. Not day-haul. I think you should record these interactions. Your ex is psycho. She sounds bizarrely jealous if you're marrying. As soon as she starts with her threats and her ranting and her insults, take out your phone and start filming. If she asks what you're doing, tell her you're just filming. Is there something she's saying she doesn't want people to know? If secret recording is legal in your state, do that. Some states require both parties to consent, other states do not. Be prepared to take her to court if this escalates, because she's trying to poison your kids against you and your new wife. And they're still young, and she is their mother. It's dangerous and very wrong. Update. Am I the a-hole for refusing to visit my mother in palliative care? Original story. My family is formed of cougars and sugar daddies, and I hate all of them. Except my grandpa, my mom's dad, who does not give a damn about anyone. He is the reason I am alive and well, and thriving. I'm currently 21, but this story goes on to the very back when I was 5, when my mom got married to a guy named Vladimir. Vlad, if you find this, then screw you. He is the most selfish person I've ever seen. After she and him got married, my mother started to leave me to my grandpa frequently. At first, it was for date nights. Then it has become after school. And then it became a full-time arrangement because that was what his little Vladdy wanted. Vlad is a sugar babe, by the way. My mom was 34. Vlad was 23 when they were married. And my mom's family is really rich. All of my mother's family, except Grandpa, adored him, and they hated my grandpa for pointing out the fact that my mom was neglecting me. When I was 9, my custody was granted to my grandpa. It was a painful process, and as a result, we have become by our own. Mom and Vladdy had their own lives after it, and I only saw them in family vacations. Last week, there was a call from Vladimir, saying that my mom has a terminal colon cancer, and she is currently in a palliative care unit. He said she wants to see you one last time before she leaves this world. They live in a city that is 12 hours by car. I'm not gonna take a plane in the circumstances of the world. So just said, I don't have time for you, and hung up the phone. And then our extended family started to call us. I wouldn't bother with their opinions, but my closest friends who know all of this said I might have been very cruel, and that she'd served a chance for closure. So I came here. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not day-haul. Sounds like there was a decade where she had the ability to make amends and chose not to. She lived her life that way. She can die that way. Your lifestyle determines your death style. Not day-haul. You don't owe her anything. She didn't act as a parent to you. Your grandpa did. Whether you want to give her closure or not, that's up to you. But your mom isn't doing this for you. She's doing it for herself. Yep, any closure is for Opie, not the mom. She lost her chance at it with persistent neglect. Not Dayhal. You might have been cruel, but so what? She was cruel to you. She can reap what she sowed. Would be excessively kind to visit? Yes, but you don't owe her anything. Only visit her if it will help you. If you want/need/are interested in that closure, then go for it. Otherwise, you live your best life. And please know her behaviors were always about who she is, not about who you are. You deserved better. Not Dayhal. She's your mother through biology, but she stopped being your parents when she let your grandpa raise you. You owe her nothing. She wants you to visit so she can feel better about how badly she treated you. Do not give that to her. And now for the update. So, after all of your opinions and suggestions, I decided to give a Zoom call and it was enlightening. I forgave someone, but it wasn't my mom. It was Vladimir. I will never ever forgive my mom, but we had some kind of closure that I will tell after what happened with Vladimir. When my custody case was happening, there were photos and proof materials that I didn't know where they came from. Turns out it was all Vladimir's stuff and help. He said he was worried about my mom and me being together, so he helped Grandpa discreetly, and my custody was transferred to my grandpa. All of the presents that I got in my birthday that was told from my mother was actually Vladimir. He also helped my grandpa on business and about his will. I feel so sorry for alienating him so much, but he said he wanted me to stay away from my mom, so he alienated himself too from the equation. We are planning to come together after the lockdown is over in my area. I also learned why he got married to my mom, and honestly, I do not blame him after I heard what my mom offered to him to be with her. He was desperate. And besides me, my mom was a good person when they were together and cared for him really well. My mom, though, she said she did not regret how she acted about me, and she said she knew she was wrong, but did not care. It was kind of shocking, but not surprising. She admitted that she should have left me to her dad when I was way younger and moved on with her life. And she wished me a happy and joyful life, and she said she wasn't asking for any forgiveness because she did not have any what-ifs about the process, and her only mistake was resisting in the custody case. It was a closure, not a good one, but it was. Our relatives were delighted when we talked, but me and Vladimir decided to cut contact with them after my mother's death like my grandfather. They can have their lives to themselves. My mom is still in palliative care, and the doctor responsible for her said to be prepared because it could happen at any moment. I decided I will attend her funeral, because after all, at the end, she admitted her mistakes, and even though she is a bad parent, she was honest and she earned my respect. So I am not gonna spare a last goodbye from her. That was all, and thank you for suggesting me a last talk even though I am not Dayhal. Not Dayhal? Wow, thanks for the update. It took an unexpected turn. I am glad you found the answers you seek for. In the end, it seems your mom just never intended to be a mom, and your grandfather was the right choice. I wish you and your grandfather a happy long life. Wow, Vlad wasn't the bloodsucker I thought he was. Desperation and money can make people act in ways that run counter to their individual morals. Seems like he wanted to do right, but in a way that didn't jeopardize himself. Dude was stuck. I'm glad things worked as well as could be expected, and that you had a silent helper on your side. All the best to you. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom I never intended to come back to the US after visiting my dad? My name is Daisy, and I am 19 female. My dad is Australian and my mom is American. I have dual citizenship. I have never really liked living with my mom. I have talked to my dad about moving to Australia for years. He told me that when I am 18, I could move in at any time and he would help me get everything worked out. And he kept his word. In 2019, I shipped a lot of my belongings, packed bags, took my needed paperwork, and left for the summer and never came back. I told my mom I was visiting longer and made excuses, but I never intended to go back. With everything that happened in December 2019, I told my mom I could not leave. I guess I didn't have the guts to explain almost 7 years of BS. Dad left when I was 12. She remarried 3 months later, And suddenly, I had a stepbrother that she seemed to favor more. I just felt like I was a guest in their home. I finally had a talk with my mom, and she called me an a-hole for it. I explained to her that I didn't intend to go back. I had everything I wanted with me in Australia. She said, "What about paperwork?" I explained I took everything when I turned 18 and graduated high school. I said that I didn't intend to go to college when this was over, and I had applied to uni here in Australia. I was happy. Dad said he would support me for a few years, and I was not going to be keeping my US citizenship. She started crying and asked if I hated her. I asked her why she never showed me I was more important than her new marriage, that while she was my mom, I didn't really know how to forgive her for feeling alienated. I said I didn't want to talk for a while and hung up. Now I feel like an a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. For everyone saying you're the a-hole or everyone sucks here, they are wrong. Your mother chose to get married 3 months after divorcing your dad. That's not sane. She then basically picks her new husband and stepson over her own daughter. She chose to be entirely selfish and put her needs over being a good mom. She sounds like someone with narcissistic tendencies. I don't blame you for moving away. Also, you're an adult and can choose where you want to live. Your dad seems a lot more supportive. You didn't owe your mom any conversation because she clearly wouldn't have listened and would have sabotaged you leaving. To all the other posters, do you not see the abuse her mother put her through? Like, it was bad enough she felt she needed to escape. I know what it's like, and it's doubtful that some of these posters do. You owe your mother nothing at all. Thank you for understanding. It was hard to explain to people I knew, unless they had seen/been to my house. Most of the time, people thought my mom must be great because she didn't care where I went. But it was really lonely, and I felt like no one cared, outside of my dad and friend group. Not an a-hole. It sounds like you were in a difficult position and you felt really hurt by your mom. Ideally, you would have told her sooner, once you were over here in Australia. But I think you did your best given your age and how you were feeling. It's pretty telling that she didn't know how upset you were and didn't even notice that you shipped all your important stuff over here. Welcome to Australia, mate. Also pretty telling, she didn't say, "I'm so sorry for not noticing," but ask, "Do you hate me?" Classic manipulative/narcissistic tactic. Not an a-hole. Your mom didn't notice you'd moved all your stuff out of your room. Didn't notice your important papers were gone. Didn't seem to give a crap you'd scrubbed your existence from the house. You did the right thing for you. Good luck with your new life in Australia. She also asked about the paperwork right away. That implies that she would have tried to stop Opie from going. She clearly made the right decision. And as for her mother, actions have consequences. Too little too late. The last story is titled, "Am I the a-hole for wanting my parents to meet our newborn before my wife's mother?" I, male 27, just had an argument about this with my female 24 wife. And 2 weeks ago, we had our first child, and she's a healthy baby girl. Some background. She is the first grandchild on both sides. I come from a large family with 5 siblings, and my wife grew up as an only child in a single-parent household. Now, my wife is very close to her mother, which is understandable, and me and mother-in-law have a great relationship as well. Our original plan was for mother-in-law to move in with us during the later stages of the pregnancy because my wife wanted her there for support, and I completely understood and had no issues with that. Now the issue is that mother-in-law lives abroad, and as you all know, COVID happened, and so mother-in-law's country went into lockdown and pretty much put a stop to all international travel. So our original plan didn't happen. This made my wife very sad. She had been looking forward to having her mother close. Again, completely understandable. Pregnancy is scary and no joke. My parents and 3 of my siblings, however, lived 2 houses down the road. And during the pandemic, we have been keeping them in our bubble. We have been having dinners and hangouts regularly. Now, here is our issue. We have been home for 1.5 weeks. We have not seen anyone, and again, I have not pushed us to see anyone. But I did ask my wife when she reckoned she was ready for my parents and siblings to meet their new niece and grandchild. She replied a bit annoyed that she wanted her mother to be the first one besides me to meet and hold her in real life, and that this was very important to her. Under normal circumstances, I would not object, but we don't know when they will be opening up for international travel. And for mother-in-law to be vaccinated and to fly over the Atlantic could potentially take months. I said it was really unfair to let my family wait for such a long time to meet their first grandchild, especially when they live so close. This did not sit well with her, and my wife and I had an argument. She said that since she gave birth and carried a pregnancy, she had a final say. Normally I would agree, but we don't even know when mother-in-law can come over, and I really want my parents to meet our daughter as well. They are eager. They have not pushed or asked in any way, but I can tell from talking to my mother that she can barely contain herself. My wife called me a massive a-hole, and that I refused to listen to her and could not possibly understand what women go through. I was just baffled and sad, and I feel I need outside perspective on this. Would I be an a-hole if I took our daughter to see my parents? Would I be an a-hole if I took our daughter to see my parents? Without your wife's permission? Absolutely, you're the a-hole. That would be a huge betrayal. Obviously, your child is likely to meet your parents before hers, but now is not the time to push this. You shouldn't be starting arguments and complaining about what's really unfair when your wife is only 10 days postpartum, coping with her first newborn baby, and missing her mother. You need to back off and be kind. I was also thinking, maybe wait for a bit longer than 1.5 weeks out of the hospital before going into this topic that is clearly very important to her. I put everyone sucks here because of her comments and having the final say because she gave birth. Agreed. I don't get the amount of not a a-hole this post is getting. His wife gave birth less than a fortnight ago. She's probably dealing with a lot. Physically because of the birth and taking care of a newborn, but also mentally for the same reasons and also not having her mother, the one person, aside from Opie, she truly wanted present, near her during this whole thing. Opie, your parents will definitely meet your kids soon, but your wife needs kindness and support, not pressure over what other people want. If you take your kid without her permission, don't expect your wife to forgive you at all. That kind of betrayal breaks relationships. Put yourself in her place. Imagine being pregnant for the first time, wanting your mother there and not having her. Even worse, you don't even know when you'll see her, when she'll see your kid. You would probably feel awful and not be particularly rational. You would be a mess, and you would need time to process everything. What matters right now is that your wife and kid recover, particularly your wife, and that she has time to process everything. Like I said, your own desires and those of your family aren't more relevant than her mental well-being. It's been 10 days. Give her a break. In countries like mine, people don't get to see newborns until they are at least a month old for the sake of their immune system, even without a pandemic. Not the a-hole for feeling that way, but you would be the a-hole if you took your daughter to your parents behind your wife's back. Maybe try to include your mother-in-law in your life more. Video chats and maybe send her a lock of the baby's hair. That way, you can show your wife that your mother-in-law is important to you and to your baby. After that, you can revisit the meeting your family thing. Your wife is maybe being a little unreasonable, but actively doing something to upset her would be an a-hole move. She's still your wife. Best of luck to you. I think this is a lovely line of thought. Find some ways for mother-in-law to be included in special moments, even though it's just not realistic for her to be there in person right now. Everyone sucks here. Without the safety of the child issue at stake, she is an a-hole for disallowing family to see the baby for an open-ended period. Days for a mother to be first? Fine. Weeks? Possibly still okay. Months? Possibly forever? A-hole behavior. But you would be an a-hole for taking your daughter away without her consent. You may think your reasons are better, but at best you are asking to do the same thing she is doing. Make a large, irrevocable decision for her and without her say. Just as she doesn't get unilateral final say, you do not either. Work it out together, or expect that the loser in this situation, whether it is you or your wife, to carry possibly relationship-ending resentment ever after. Not the a-hole. She can't hold your kid hostage from family for months hoping travel will be allowed. Also, it's your kid too. But there could be something deeper than just that. Does she think your family isn't being safe? Am I the a-hole for telling my mom I'm not an aunt and not going to pretend just for her? My mom married my stepdad when I, 20 female, was 7 and my stepsister was 6. You might think after all these years we would be good, but nope. She was such a freaking nightmare to deal with, and it only got worse after her dad took custody of her from her mom when she was 13. It wasn't just me either. She smashed up the collection of photos my mom had of my uncle, her brother who died when they were kids, and she made sure those photos could not be salvaged. She broke something valuable that her grandma, my stepdad's mom, owned. As for me, she would spit in my pillow so I couldn't sleep on it. She would tell me to give her stuff, so when I get a phone, she demanded I give it to her. If I was eating a chocolate bar, she demanded it. Her dad at one point had her in therapy 3 times a week, and he would punish the hell out of her for stuff like spitting and breaking stuff. One time, when we were 15 and 16, we both got in trouble because she tore the photo I had in my bedroom of my dad and grandparents, and she smudged food stains all over the fragments left, and I lost it. I told her she freaking sucked, and I was so glad she was not my real sister because I would never want to be family with someone so unlovable as her. That I never disliked anyone as much, and my life was so much better without her in it. After that, things were very different. My mom said she understood that I was upset, but that I should never say such cruel things to someone. She encouraged me to apologize and say I hadn't mean those things. But I had. My stepdad and I had gotten along okay up to that point, but me saying his daughter was unlovable and that I wished she had never been in my life was a step too much for him, which I get. We pretty much coexisted after that. Had therapy and all that, but I think my mom was the only one truly all in at first, and then my stepdad eventually. But my stepsister and I were not interested in repairing things. For me, they were just never good to begin with. Now I live with some friends and live pretty far from my mom. My stepsister recently moved back in with them after she had a baby, and my mom has tried to convince me that this is the perfect time to put the past in the past and move forward. She has brought up my being an aunt many times before, and I know she's telling the truth that my stepsister's ready for it too, because she sent me a video via my mom's Facebook saying that she had forgiven me for what I said and was ready to move forward. I got pretty tired of my mom trying and calling me an aunt, so I told her I wasn't an aunt. I told her I have no siblings, and so I can't be an aunt. She told me it was childish to say that when everybody else is ready to move on from all that. I told her I was not, that I had never grown to care about stepsister and did not want to be in her life, or to have her in mine, and her child was an extension of that. She's mad at me for saying that, and my stubborn stance. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She has forgiven you, not apologized. Exactly. The entitlement continues. It's such a gaslight. I'll never get what makes people narcissistic like this. People tend to not want to admit when they did something wrong. Even if the stepsister is better now and knows she was an a-hole, which may not be the case, it'll take a lot for her to not be stubborn and admit it. Not the a-hole, but everyone else's. Especially your mother and stepfather, who did nothing to stop your stepsister's cruel behavior, especially after she ruined precious photos of the deceased. Why on earth did they let her get away with so much? She was punished, but it was not like she cared all that much. Her dad was always grounding her, and he had her in therapy. But she just loved doing stuff to hurt people she and her mom didn't like, and didn't give a damn about the consequences as long as she got what she wanted. Like when she full-on had my mom sobbing after destroying the photos of her brother. Not a-hole. One day you might feel ready to let bygones be bygones, but until that time, they can't force you. Your feelings are valid. I also don't like that stepsister forgave you, but didn't own her crap and apologize. She sounds like the same narcissistic a-hole who hurt you on a regular growing up. Wait, what? She had forgiven you? She bullied you for years, and she had the audacity to say that. Sorry, but she needs to apologize for everything she did and acknowledge her fault in this. You are so not an a-hole. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for calling my dad a freeloader? I, 16 female, have been having a rough day with my dad, 56 male, today. First, he came into my room when I was in the middle of doing a presentation to yell at me for not answering his text. He had sent it 6 minutes prior to coming in. Everybody in my class heard him insult me for about a minute, until he finally understood I was presenting after me telling him for the 100th time. Immediately after my presentation, when I left my room, he told me I should have alerted him I was going to be presenting and that everything that happened was my fault. Because of this, I was already pissed off at him, which is important for the next part of the story. Later in the day, after finishing all my schoolwork, I was cleaning the dishes, which were a lot of since my mom is busy with work and my dad refuses to clean his plates. I really don't mind doing them, but the problem came up when my dad came downstairs. He started the entire conversation with, "Wow, you're finally doing something helpful around the house." After the whole day of him being a jerk to me, I finally snapped. I may have used a bit too colorful of language, but the main gist of what I said was, "I don't want to hear it from you when you're more of a freaking freeloader than I am. You don't do the dishes, you don't do laundry, you don't work, you don't walk the dogs. You do nothing but sit in your room all day, watch the news, mope, and be freaking miserable." This obviously turned into a screaming match pretty quickly, with him calling me insensitive because I should have known that the only reason he doesn't have a job is because of COVID and how anxious he is with going out right now. I countered this by saying the least he can do is be nice, help around the house, alleviate some of the stress from my mom, or look for a job. After that, he told me to bug off, so I did. I went to my room and didn't finish the dishes. I'm worried I went too harsh on him by calling him a freeloader, because I know he has anxiety when it comes to COVID and working at this time. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. He was acting like a huge a-hole and deserved it. He's being hypocritical for judging you for not doing anything, even though he doesn't either. He needs this wake-up call. Judging her for not doing anything either. She was in class / doing homework most of the day, which should be her #1 priority at her age. This. Also, anxiety doesn't justify being a freeloader. Opie's dad is an awful dad, and it sounds like a worse husband. Lots of people have anxiety issues, and we manage to not be freeloading jerks to our loved ones. Not at a-hole. Any slight a-hole behavior seems justified. He needs to grow up. COVID doesn't stop you from doing dishes / cleaning your house, etc. He may be depressed and anxious, but in the real world you still have to get on with things. You can't just peace out because you don't want to handle things when you have responsibilities. Also, berating you for ages in general is BS, let alone when you're trying to do your schoolwork. Congrats, you're more of an adult than your dad is. Not at a-hole. The worst part is that he isn't just doing anything. He's doing nothing and giving Opie crap about not doing enough. Anxiety and depression don't do that. That's pure and filtered a-holery. COVID is stopping him from working and leaving the house. So what's stopping him from doing laundry and dishes, etc.? I can get why you snapped at him, although if his laziness is an issue, it's best between him and your mom. Not a-hole. Yeah, I forgot to include that in my original post. I might have been an a-hole because I'm talking up to my dad, which isn't really my place. Kinda sounds like you earned it though. Parents often criticize without realizing how hypocritical they're being. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister I'm not her mom and it's not my job to keep looking after her? I'm 21 female, have a sister, 18 female. My parents put me in the worst position of being her keeper / caretaker when we were kids. I was expected to help her with homework, help her with friend problems. If she was in trouble with a kid, they would ask me to speak to the kid or an older sibling if they had one around my age. I was responsible for walking her to and from school on my way to school. My mom would make me late sometimes because she was running late and I wasn't allowed to leave without her. I was in a different school to her. It was so bad when we were teenagers. I got the job of explaining periods to her, the job of looking after her when they weren't home, and that was a pretty regular thing with them. When I moved out, I distanced myself from all of them. I didn't want to be responsible for her anymore, and I didn't want to end up having them push her to live with me. And she wanted everything. She wanted me to cook for her, buy clothes for her, take her places, help with homework and other school stuff. She would also want me to sit and listen to her vent all her problems. So anyway, she moved out of our parents' house and cut them out of her life. And then she reaches out to me and says she needs me to help her out. She was struggling to pay rent, struggling with school, and she wanted to move in with me or have me come over every day to help. I told her she needs to figure stuff out for herself. She told me it was my job to help her, and I said no. I said I am not her mom, and it's not my job to look after her. That it should never have been my job. She's pissed, And one of my friends thinks I was too harsh since I'm the only person who ever really took care of her. They think I should at least try to get her up and running and teach her to be independent. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole, but to be honest, neither is your sister. Your parents, on the other hand, massive a-holes. What your parents did to you is parentification. It's a form of child abuse. You're completely correct. It shouldn't have been your job to raise your sister, and I'm sorry your parents made it your job. Although you of course have no obligation to continue to help your sister, I just want to note that it's not her fault either. You were both kids. Yes, sadly, the sister isn't at fault either. Maybe she could have figured it out that what they had is mainly considered weird and unusual. But since it has always been like this, I can see why she didn't. What Opie could do is give her advice on things if it isn't too much. Like if she asks her how to do laundry, to just text her the steps and what to look out for. But honestly, after all this, I would probably not even do that. But maybe Opie's a better person than I am. Not the a-hole, but the anger should be towards your parents, not her. I have not spoken to them since I moved out. But I just don't want to end up being responsible for her again. This falls into the category of life isn't fair sometimes. It's not always a simple matter of if-then decisions. Are you the a-hole for wanting your own life and own obligations? No. Is there a vulnerable human being that you grew up with who is going to struggle, and yes, is going to burden you if you try to help her? Yes. This isn't where Reddit can help you. You have to determine your own personal ethics/morals. For my part, I would feel it was my duty to help her. If for no other reason, then there is no one else to do so. And there is a significant chance that she will suffer severe emotional harm from being rejected by you and her parents. That's me, not you. I would consider that you could make an attempt with very specific boundaries and very specific expectations, but it would be a gamble. Expectations like, you will learn to cook for yourself, you will learn to manage your own schoolwork, etc. I will help you, but you must consistently show independence as a goal for you. Sometimes we take risks to help others because they need help and there's no one else to help. Living only for ourselves is not how I want to live. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for calling my parents a-holes after they shared my former therapy diary with my younger brother? I, 20 female, have a younger brother, 15 male. I was 5 when he was born and had suffered a trauma during the pregnancy. I was alone in the house with my grandpa who had passed away while my parents were out of town. That made his impending arrival very stressful for me. To be honest, I was angry and sad. I did not want a sibling, and I know the next 3 to 4 years were very rough for my family. I would scream and cry and have night terrors, and when neither of my parents showed him any attention, I would lose it. There were times I would tell them to send him away. Times I would think things you should never think about anyone really. But the fact he was a baby and I was so young, it was concerning. My parents put me into therapy, and for about a month I didn't open up. I didn't speak at all. I wouldn't even play with the toys. So the therapist came up with the idea for me to write stuff down. She would let me write and I would do that. Most of it in the first year to year and a half made no sense. But it helped her a little because she could pick up on some things. There was a lot of heavy stuff in there. Stuff that I hate that I wrote and felt. But I also know from my therapist that it was not my fault. And trauma affects everyone differently. And for me, the change of a sibling as well as the feeling of losing my parents to him were intensified by the trauma I had suffered. And I was incapable of not feeling like he was the cause or like if he went away everything would get better. I actually never showed my parents the journals. They knew they existed, but the therapist suggested they should not read them. But if I ever felt like I wanted to go over the journals with them, I could. I chose not to. They knew some of how I felt, but I never wanted them to hate me for feeling how I did. There were a lot of rough days. My brother never remembered any of it though. It turns out my parents actually kept them. I put them in the trash a couple of years ago before moving out as a kind of way of moving on from that. And my parents kept and read them. And not only that, but they decided a few weeks ago that my brother had a right to know. I had no idea about any of this until my brother DM'd me going nuts, saying I was horrible and how could I ever say those things or feel those things. And I was sick. I called my parents and they straight up told me he felt he deserved to know. And so did they. I told them they were a-holes. and they should not hold that stuff against me. They called me sick and said what I wrote went far beyond normal sibling rivalry or trauma. They basically said how dare I call them a-holes after that. Now, I'm just doubting whether I am being a jerk now. I'm so mad and feel like I'll never escape from this mess. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, but digging another person's therapy journals out of the trash and showing them to family? Pure evil. Your parents just showed you exactly who they are. Believe them. I'm trying so hard to think of a good reason your parents show him those journals, Opie. There isn't one. It's inexcusable. Completely and utterly inexcusable. It's hard to blame the brother for being hurt. If they were as bad as you said, I'm sure it was upsetting, especially since he's still a kid himself. And even hard to blame him for lashing out. So he's not an a-hole. Nor are you. But your parents? What the hell is wrong with them? Not a-hole. Wow. Your parents found a way to take your healed trauma and re-traumatize you and your brother in one go. That's straight up impressive a-hole behavior on their part. Your brother is not a-hole because, frankly, he's 15 and your therapy diary is probably way too much for him to digest and quantify right now. Maybe ever. Your parents are the a-holes times 2 for dragging him into this all over again. It's probably time to take a step back from interacting with them and go see a therapist. If your brother was willing, therapy with him would be a good idea to navigate this violent upheaval in your relationship. Upheaval in the relationship? Opie's parents destroyed it. It's probably gone. So not a-hole. Wow. First, nothing you did back then was your fault. You were a child. Second, that wasn't theirs to share. Hey, let's introduce hate and discontent into the family. Your parents are terrible humans and should be labeled as such by you to their faces. Am I the a-hole for how I reacted to my mom's pregnancy announcement? So I've been trying to figure out how to word this post and stuff for days. And I'm very tired, so please bear with me with my grammar, spelling, general cohesion, etc. I'm 18 male and the oldest of 5 siblings. Not hugely relevant, but they are 7 female, 9 female, 9 male, and 12 female. Our mom is, well, not the best, let's put it that way. I'm sure she has some kind of severe mental health issues, but she absolutely refuses to accept that or get diagnosed. She has substance abuse issues and will go on benders for weeks and times, and has these prolonged manic episodes where she does things like blowing all of our money on designer stuff and gadgets and even vehicles, but she doesn't pay the bills or buy food or anything. It's been this way since I was little. It's all I've ever really known. She has this pattern when she's had babies where for like 6 months or so, she turns into mother of the year and super attentive and stuff. But then the novelty of the new baby wears off and she's back to the same old mom. Since I was 7 and the oldest younger sister was born, I've been picking up the slack. It's meant I've had to give up / miss out on a lot and had to grow up very fast. We're at a point now though where the kids are old enough that they don't need constant supervision, can be a little bit independent, and I can have something of a normal life. I'm in a relationship now and I'm meant to be going to university, albeit at a school close enough I can stay in the same city, in September. Or I was, until a few days ago when Mom excitedly told me she is pregnant again and due in September. I did not react well. At first I asked if she was joking, and when I realized she wasn't, I got kind of angry. I shouted a bit that it was so selfish of her to have another kid when she can't take care of the ones she's got, and I can't believe that she'd do this to me. I'm now not going to be able to move out for uni because I can't in good faith leave a newborn alone in that situation. I'm also going to have to give up any semblance of a social life I have, and I'm basically back to square one. I raised my voice and ended up crying. She got upset with me, said I spoiled what should be a good thing, and said I was being a selfish a-hole who's making it all about me. I've been ruminating on it, and I don't know. Maybe she's right. Maybe I did kind of overreact. Am I the a-hole for getting upset? Now for the top comments. The burden of raising these kids has been on you, so it seems natural that you would make your pregnancy announcement about you. If you let it happen, then you will be the one raising this kid. On that note, move out for university, develop a life, and report your mom to children's services. You may think you can do a good job taking care of all these kids, but you are basically a kid yourself. And you didn't make the irresponsible decision to have kids you don't want to raise. Yes, addiction is hard and she needs help. But she's not getting that if you keep cleaning up her messes. Get professionals involved and maybe it will help your mom get her life together. Worst case scenario, you get your education and develop a life. And then, if you still want to, you'll be in a better position to take on raising 5 kids. Right now, you aren't any better for them than your mom is, because you don't have the education, /finances, /social support needed. Not an a-hole for your reaction, though your mom is certainly making poor choices. You would be an a-hole if you sacrificed your life to something that really doesn't help anyone by giving up your future. This is a hard situation. I hope it works out for the best for you and your siblings. This, OP. Do not put your life on hold to fix your mother's mistakes. All that's going to do is burn you out and make you resentful. Go live your life. I recommend trying to set some boundaries with your mother ahead of time. Tell her, if you feel safe doing so, that she can have her baby but you won't be doing the bulk of the care. And if she demands to know why, tell her the truth. You've taken care of enough of her babies. It's time she stepped up. Good luck, OP. You needed to have called CPS many times before now. And you'll need to call CPS if she goes on another one of her benders again. I guarantee you the kids will be in a better situation than my mom can't afford food and bills because she spent it all on substances and designer BS. You can't put your life on hold to raise another one of her kids. I know you love them and can't help but to feel responsible for it, but ultimately you can't just decide to be their parent. Your mom is just going to end up having another kid in 3 to 5 years anyway. Go to university and call CPS if anything happens. Not a a-hole. I was in foster care when I was the twins' age, and without getting too into it, I had an incredibly traumatic experience. I'm terrified of it happening to any of the kids. I'm sorry you experienced trauma, but what exactly do you think your siblings are experiencing with food insecurity and no stability in the home, being raised by a brother who is frustrated and doesn't have the support to genuinely help them? That is also traumatic. They could have a better outcome in foster care. Many do. Not an a-hole. And yes, you can move out and go to university. This is your only chance to escape. Call social services so they put care plans in place for your siblings. 1. You deserve to go to university. 2. If you don't, you will hinder your future chances. And in turn, you may be able to look out for your siblings / encourage them to go to uni as their get-out plans when they're older. 3. You're not a nanny, but you're essentially enabling your mom by giving her what she wants. If it makes you feel better, when I left my parents, my mother actually did to an extent step up and parent the little ones. She could always do it. She just used me because I was there and would step in while she didn't step up. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not going to my mom's birthday after learning her husband got rid of my cat? My mom remarried when I, 29 male, was 14. My sister and brother were 12 and 9. From the beginning, none of us liked Ben and didn't consider him our stepdad. It was obvious he didn't like us either. He literally divided our fridge between stuff that was ours and what was his. Separate milk, cereal, eggs, sodas, etc. Everything he paid for weren't allowed to touch, even if it was the same brand. It was weird, but whatever our mom bought us what we needed. Ben was super controlling too. Always told us our friends weren't allowed in his house. He's the one who moved in with us. Even if my mom said it's okay. We weren't allowed to sit on his couches, so always sat on the living room floor. Expected us to be silent in the house 24/7, never let us go outside, etc. I was a stubborn little guy, so I butted heads with him the most while my mom played mediator between us. Even now that we're all older, we still dislike him. Only tolerate Ben for our mom when we visit. My brother in particular hates him, and sometimes they have screaming matches. Last month, when we met up at their house, things got out of hand with their argument, and my brother revealed he knows Ben was the one who got rid of my cat when he went missing. This caught me off guard, but I got on Ben's case and told him to tell me the truth. And it was true after all. My brother saw Ben with my cat in his car driving off once. Ben confessed he was tired of all the hairs and my cat roaming around everywhere, so he took my cat to a shelter an hour away. I almost freaking lost it right there, and my mom tried to calm me down. So she had known about it too back then, but never told me because my cat had already been gone for months. But according to her, she made sure Ben knew how horrible that was. Then I took off and told them I'm not speaking to them anymore, and she shouldn't expect me at her birthday, which was a few days ago. My heart was pounding and I cried a little in my car. I felt like I lost my cat all over again. I had spent months looking for him, and all that time he was at a shelter. Who knows if he was even adopted because he was an older cat. My brother is the only one who apologized for never telling me and for bringing it up like that. Everyone else is telling me to let it go already because Ben made that mistake years ago. They said my mom was extremely hurt that I didn't show up to her birthday. So this was very mature of me to be angry over something done a long time ago. I spoke to her and she apologized for what happened back then, but it didn't make it right for me to shut them out on an important day. So she also feels I was in the wrong for refusing to go on every birthday I've been there, and it means a lot to have all her kids there celebrating. I'm caught in the middle, still feeling emotionally raw over this whole thing, and not really sure if I was an a-hole for not going. Give me a break. Ben made a mistake? Ben was a selfish a-hole time and time again, and your mom enabled this man to treat her kids horribly for years. You have every right to be furious with both of them. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I sure don't see Ben apologizing anywhere in this story. Not the a-hole at all. I also don't see where the mom attempted to get the cat back. I mean, sure, she let her husband know he did a bad thing, but oops, I guess can't go to the shelter and get it back. I also don't see her ever standing up for her kids beyond being a mediator, which is apparently a normal and okay thing for her to do, and not question why she brought someone into her life that makes that role a necessity. Not an a-hole. I'm pretty sure OP is better off without either of them. I said this in another comment, but I'm amazed any of these kids even speak to her. She was basically an accomplice to this mistreatment for nearly a decade in the case of the younger kids. I'd never speak to my family again if they let someone treat me that way. She was an abuser as well. Neglect is mistreatment, and she clearly neglected her children. Not an a-hole. She made it clear she has chosen Ben over her children, so she can celebrate with him. If she wanted her kids to be happy and visit, she should have dumped the weirdo who refused her kids food. Not an a-hole. You don't have to speak to either of them ever again, if you don't want to. That's freaking horrible. I get that birthday gatherings mean a lot to you, Mom. But you know what meant a lot to me? My cat. What he did was despicable, and you covered it up. That makes you complicit. I'm absolutely entitled to shut him out of my life forever. Should have done it long ago. And if you're adjacent to him, that's unfortunate. You're gonna have to forgive me if I can't get over what he and you did. Or don't forgive me. I don't care. Won't change anything. You chose that narcissist over your own children for years, so enjoy that. I'm done playing happy family with that monster while my mom acts like his deputy. Click. Nothing less than an apology from him, not her, will suffice. And you still don't have to accept that. But her apologizing for him? No. Next story. Am I the a-hole for screaming at my whole family because they didn't invite me? I, 25 female, had a big argument a few weeks ago when I visited them. Before I start, I should mention that I am autistic, but I have a normal job, a fiancé, and a pretty normal life. That was a bit different as a kid because I had a few more difficulties with loud noises, groups of people, foods and stuff, and some social rules/interactions. But I almost never had major meltdowns in front of others. There were maybe 2 to 3 accidents, but which kid is perfect? So the whole incident started when I was at my parents' house, where my parents, 54 male and 50 female, and 2 of my siblings, 29 female and 21 female, my brother, 19 male, and I both moved out at 18 but visited often. We all sat at dinner, and my brother started talking about how nice it was in Paris a few years ago, and that he misses those trips because of the pandemic. I froze for a moment, because I never had a family trip for the last 20 years, not even stuff like an amusement park or zoo visit, because my parents let me believe I don't have enough money. The most fun I got was when I was for a few weekends, sometimes weeks, with my grandparents in another city. It hit me pretty hard, and I exactly know the reason why I was there always alone. I asked my whole family if my assumption was true and that they had family vacations without me and still excluding me. After a long pause, my dad said yes, and I could not hold my tears back. I felt so alone and went into the guest room to cry. After an hour of crying and thinking about all of that, I asked my parents why they did that, and my mom said she couldn't bear my meltdowns and couldn't deal with them at vacations, and was so sorry it found out that way. My dad just sat there, and the only thing he had to add was, "You need to understand that we wanted to feel like a normal family at least at our vacations." At that moment, I screamed at my parents that they should have given me up on adoption if they hated me so much. Until now, I got a message from my mom that says, that's exactly what I meant. You can't control yourself, and that I should stop ignoring her calls. Pretty nasty messages from my sisters I don't want to repeat. The R slur is used, and a big apology from my brother, who told me I missed over 50 big and small vacations, that he is sorry what happens, and that he didn't told me before. So my question is, am I the a-hole for ignoring my family besides my brother? My mom didn't really apologize in my opinion. I just feel still sad and betrayed. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Dear Lord, this is ableist as hell. We wanted to feel like a normal family? Excuse you for being born autistic. Info though, where were you when these vacations happened? 50 trips is a lot. I was at my grandparents almost every second weekend, in a camp for autistics, basically applied behavioral analysis therapy all summer long, and hated it. And after I moved out, they didn't have to worry. I have routines, and will ask 2 weeks before if they have time. The reason we always left you behind was because you'd ruin our good time. I have nothing to say, but I'm sorry. You are completely entitled to how you feel. Your parents and sisters are weaponizing your disability against you. If you aren't already, I would continue to maintain very low contact for the time being. These people are actively denying you your humanity. Labeling you as abnormal? Your disgusting sisters referring to you as the R slur. There is no excuse for that. Not one. Once it's safe to travel, book yourself a trip somewhere. Text a picture of you boarding the plane and say, "You were right, Mom." Catch flights, not feelings. Thank you. That's a great idea. Not the a-hole. Honestly, what kind of parents can do that to their child? I'm gonna suggest start calling your parents by their first name, if you ever talk to them again, because they clearly don't deserve to be called Mom and Dad. That is a great idea because it's what I feel, but I don't think that would be socially acceptable. Not the a-hole. They are horrible parents. What they did was so ableist and cruel to a child. That's exactly what I meant. You can't control yourself. And they want to guilt you for something that they did? Yeah, I don't think so. You deserve a proper apology. And you wouldn't be wrong if you wanted to go no contact with them. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for staying the night at my dad's? Some backstory. I am a 21-year-old female and I don't like kids. I usually give them the chance to gain my liking, but I haven't changed my mind yet. So, some time ago, my mom and I lost our home due to a natural disaster. We lived in a rented house for about a year or so, but we decided to rebuild our house. Well, about 1 month ago we moved back to our old house. I told my mom that I would get a job so I could help her get the new stuff for our new house and all that stuff. Also, she is a retired preschool teacher, so she loves kids. To help too, she decided to start babysitting. Well, this is where it all goes downhill. Once settled in our new house, she decided to start babysitting here. At first it was all nice, but as the time went on, these kids wouldn't leave me alone. Like really. I would take a shower, they would knock on my door to ask me what I was doing, and they also waited for me to get out. While doing college online, due to COVID, at a proctorized exam, they would knock on my window, start shouting or even enter my room to ask me what I was doing. Also, one of the kids I remember was petting my dog so harshly that she started howling in pain, 10-year-old Cocker Spaniel. So I decided to talk to my mom and told her that when they came by, I would stay in my room so they wouldn't bother me, and I would bother her to tell them not to pet my dog, as it was obvious that she was in pain. Well, yesterday, as always, they came by and I stayed in my room. When all of a sudden my door opens and the kids storm into my room. I tell them, "Hey, aren't you supposed to be with your mother?" They tell me that she's on the phone. Then they start grabbing one of my figurines. I have a collection of crystal figurines. So I rush to them, and all of a sudden some nail polish that I had on my bed falls, breaks, and stains my bed sheets, my dresser, the floor, and it even got on me. In the moment, all I could say was, go back to Mom so I can clean this mess. When I clean everything, I tell my mom I'm staying at my dad's, so I can go to the store and get some new bed sheets. About 2 hours later, she texts me and tells me that I'm such an a-hole for not treating the kids well. One is 5 and the other one is 8. And that I am mean to them, and that I should like the kids, and that I was disrespectful to her by leaving for the night. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. My mother also did an in-home daycare once upon a time. It's hectic and frustrating if there are no boundaries. You aren't getting paid to watch these kids, so it is not your responsibility to like them or be involved with them in any way. Yes, if anybody's an a-hole, it's your mom for not setting any boundaries with a dear sweet devil spawn. I mean children. Seriously, not an a-hole. My mom is an early childhood educator, and when I was around 7 years old, she started doing home daycare. With 3 kids of her own, it was easier/cheaper than working at a daycare outside home and paying to have her kids watched. And our bedrooms were completely off limits to the daycare kids unless we invite them in. Obviously, this was pre-pandemic, by like 2 decades. But if I had homework or a project, or needed to focus or even just wanted to read a book quietly and be left alone, my mom would demand that I be nice or play with the kids. This was her job, but in my home. Not the a-hole. Lock your door. Buy door locks. I use a doorstep wedge when I can't get a lock. Not the a-hole. If your mom can't do the job adequately, she shouldn't be doing it. And she clearly isn't, because these kids aren't being supervised properly.